Okay, let's talk about fixing Akari's eyes. Well, the first thing we're going to do is I went over into the schematic and I inserted a peg bar, and then I took all of the columns that represent Akari and hello, open the group. Okay, Open toonz doesn't want to open the group. I have no idea why. Well, I don't know what's going on there. Open group. There it goes. So sometimes it will open the group and sometimes it simply won't. But at least it does sometimes. So anyway, I took all of the levels that represent her and put them in a group. Okay? So now we can close that group. And then I attach that to a peg bar. And the reason there's a peg bar is so that I can then use the animate tool to rotate the entire group of layers 90 degrees, and that way okay, this is interesting too. This is definitely buggy behavior. We're on rotation, but what it's showing me is position. If I switch to position and then back to rotation, yeah, and there it is. So we see that there's definitely things like this are making me definitely want to download the Git repository for Open toonz and start looking at the source code, because there's some stuff that, I mean, I used to do a lot of C and C++ programming, and I honestly think maybe I could. I write pretty robust code, let me put it that way, and but going through someone else's code and finding, you know, understanding how it works and then figuring out the problems, that isn't fun. So, I don't know. It's something I'm thinking about. But anyway, the point of the story is, so I went ahead and made this layer that I had previously drawn that is not, in my opinion, up to scratch. I made it partially transparent, and then I took the eye and the eyeball and put them on two separate layers, because what I'm going to do, or levels, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a whole, a mask in essence of flesh tone with the eye shapes. I'm going to use the vector, I'm going to use vectors to draw the shape of the eyes, and then I'm going to put the eyeballs underneath and probably have some kind of gradient texture maybe in the pupils. We'll see, but that's kind of what I'm thinking I'd like to achieve. So, I think that maybe one way to make this job a little easier would be to, let's go ahead and let's look at this sequence. I think, you know, what I really want to do is duplicate it. I want to duplicate the column only so I know what the timing was. Actually, I'm just going to write it down. I think that would be that's the low-tech way to do it, and it's pretty much guarantees no mistakes. So so this is what I'm doing, is I'm just getting my bearings on what the keyframe ordering was previously, so that I can come back to it and reproduce it later in case I delete things or move them around. Okay, so as you can see, this column has 5 drawings in it, but in the animation I actually only ever used 3 of them. So there's number 6, there's number 4, and there's number 1. So we got number 1, number 6, and number 4. And number 4 happens on frame 21. Okay, and by the way, I wrote these in the wrong order. We got number 1, then number 4, then number 6. So number 1 is on frame 1. Number 4 is on frame 21, and number 6 is on frame 44. Okay, so we probably won't have to follow this exactly, because actually if I break the eye into a couple pieces like I plan to, then I'm going to actually use the animate tool to animate the eyeball's movement. So in other words, instead of going click, click like that, it's actually going to have some, I think we will put some, just animate the eyeballs, as I said, with the animate tool. So one thing that's interesting about this is I had mentioned in the other video that this characteristic of the hold on a second. I'm just kind of thinking. I wonder why. I do not remember putting that peg bar in there. I wonder what that peg bar is for. But we'll worry about that another time. Anyway, what I was saying earlier is that this whole A-B thing is interesting, and I need to find, there's a tutorial out there on it that explains how it's useful for if you have a level and you're doing like lip sync, for example, you can toggle between the images that are selected, and it seems to me it had something to do with that A-B thing. But maybe I'm remembering wrong, but there's something about like lip sync, or what, if you've ever used Anime Studio, it's called switch animation, that makes it really quick and easy to go down a level column and instantly switch which drawing shows up. Let's go ahead and see if we can actually do that right now. I'm going to say, can we grab this frame and replace it with a different image? We can replace the... Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so if we look over here... okay, let's just give this a crack. Maybe this is going to really backfire. But what we see is... I may be barking up the wrong tree. But this is level CB, so that should be fairly easy to find. Okay, so here's CB. And it's already, so this does not give us any indication of the images that are selected. Okay, so what I'm getting at is if I were to take this drawing and drag it in here, okay, there, first of all, OpenToonz is going to create a new level for us. Now, for the purpose of what I'm actually trying to do, that's probably a good thing. Because what I really need to do is reverse these drawings. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually drag that there, this here, and this here. So that's kind of a low-tech way to solve the problem I was trying to solve. Now, right now, we can't see them in the right orientation for the simple reason that they're not included in the peg bar I created earlier. So here's Akari, and that column I just created is column 9. I've got it selected, so it should show up with yellow letters here. And where the heck are you, column 9? Where are you, column 9? Column 9. Hello. Whoop. There it is. Okay, when it creates a new level, it seems to insert it really, really close to the table. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So now if I connect B to B here, as you can see, it's appeared in the correct place. So why did I do that? I did that because if I'm going to set up the architecture of the eyes, the first thing I want to start with is the open eyes, not the closed eyes. I want to start with the open eyes and then have some alternate drawings that represent the closing, and I can worry about the ordering of them later. But as far as setting up the structure of it, I really would rather start with the open eye position. And none of these really are what you might call the definitive design for Akari's eyes. I'm thinking maybe I could do better. But if this is going to be the actual vector art of her eyes, then I'm thinking I'm going to hit the G key and look here at my settings, and I need to switch, by the way, back to here. Okay, and what I want to do is I'm going to follow the... Okay, got a little problem here. Oh, it's in rectangle mode. That explains a lot. I'm using a polyline. I want a polyline. Okay. So now why do I want a polyline? Because I actually want to really have control over the curvature. And actually, that's not going to quite work. So let me just think about this for a minute. Okay, C key. Alright, so we'll grab that guy and get rid of it completely, and then lighten up that curvature there. So now what my intention was, initially I was thinking that what I would do is create it in sort of a Boolean manner, so there'd be an inner and an outer outline. But I'm thinking, why would I do that when I could actually just use the tire pump? Okay. Why not just use the tire pump to give that girl some eyelashes? That's what I'm thinking. That tire pump is coming in handy right now. Look at that. Because that means we could fill it with white, which would look pretty good. Okay, and plus we can, the cool thing is we can go in anytime we want and change it if the design isn't quite perfect. So with that in mind, I'm going to hit this, which is the S key, and I'm going to hit Control C, Control V. Alright, and I want to scale this. But really what I want to do is horizontal. I'm going to take a chance here. I think this is correct. I'm going to go horizontal and just hit -100. Yep. Okay. My bad. I'm forgetting that this entire thing, because the pegboard is rotated 90 degrees. So, my bad. That was just a little dumb attack. So let's hit delete. And another mistake. Okay. And remember that the S key or selection tool is destructive. So that means that I now have to actually reverse it again to get it back to normal. So then I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to hit negative on the vertical. Okay, so what that should allow me to do is something kind of sort of like that. Now what I want to do is, I think, grab the center of this and do a little rotation, rotatey poo, and I guess that's the shear, that's for the shear effect. So I think maybe a slight shear would be okay. Okay, that is not too bad, is it? But one thing that's obvious is if we want to have, there's actually a few things here that are emerging as problematic. One, the pillow is going to have to be separated into a separate layer. So that kind of sucks. Unless I'm going to erase this and sort of bake the eye into the drawing, which I really wasn't planning to do. Okay, so this is an interesting problem-solving exercise, actually, because you have to sort of think about, what do you want to do? Are you trying to create a puppet? Are you trying to create assets that can be reused later, which is basically what I'm trying to do here? Or do you just want a drawing that works? You know, when it needs to animate, draw another drawing and you're on your way, kind of thing. Okay, so with that in mind, with the strategy I have chosen to employ, it would appear that probably what we want to do is, let's go ahead and create 3 variations of this. So I'm going to just create 3 duplicates. Then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to edit this. I'm just going to edit the vectors. Okay, so step 1 is just to kind of get this a little closer to what it was intended to be from the original drawing. Yeah, not too shabby. And if I squeeze that in like that, then what I could go in and do is go ahead and sculpt this just a little bit. So this is kind of fun because it's actually something I haven't done much with OpenToonz at all. Really, just using the vector tools to pound your art into shape, kind of thing, you know. And you know, frankly, they're pretty good set of tools. Okay, so now I need the tire pump. Okay, and I'm kind of curious if I use the pinch tool. Yeah, the pinch tool is definitely useful. The magnet tool, on the other hand, I believe generally creates new nodes, although I'm not sure that it always does. So if the size on the magnet tool was really small, that would definitely create new nodes. So if I hit the C key, you can see it created a bunch of new nodes, which is almost never what I would want. So I tend to say if I'm going to use the magnet tool, I generally want to keep it very, very big. So like I said, this isn't necessarily the world-renowned definitive way to work in OpenToonz, but like I said, this whole thing, I thought let's make this an exercise to kind of fiddle with some of these tools and see how they work. One thing I see right here is that maybe the capping of the vector would want to be changed from like miter or flat or whatever. I'm not even sure what the options are, but I think those are a couple of them. Okay, and then to try to clarify this, I'm going to go ahead and just take some nodes out. Yeah, that I don't like. I don't need those nodes. Those are extra. Okay, that's not bad, but that's got to be closed in. So, okay, let's look at what we got here. Not bad, not bad. Of course, here we still have a pretty major problem, obviously. So I'm going to try to simplify this drawing as much as I can. And I'm not claiming to get it right on the first try by any stretch this time. I'm just trying to making it my aim to get familiar with the tools that are available. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I like that. So yeah, this isn't like drawing. This is more like sculpting. It's more like what you would do in Blender, you know, 3D type work. Okay. And I would rather use the Bezier curvature there to fine-tune that shape. Okay, and okay, so I'm going to just go with that for the moment. And then this one should be pretty simple because actually all we need to do is go like that. This is where vectors are quite useful. They're so simple. Just go like that. And then let's use the tire pump to give her some lashes and to close them down at the corners. Okay, and I am curious what that's going to look like rendered. And unfortunately, in order to see, we've got to mute these two levels. Oh yeah, I mean that looks okay. That looks just fine. So, not completely satisfied with that corner. Okay, that's better. That's better. Okay. So we're going to go with that. That's fine. Okay, turn that back on. I guess we definitely don't need those to render. So, okay, so that's a good start. So we got 1, 2, 3 shapes. Don't really like this change in the lashes right there. I like the thicker ones better. So I'm going to grab The tire pump tool throws me because I really keep expecting going right to make it bigger and left to make it smaller, and it actually works the opposite. You go left to make it bigger and right to make it smaller. So that's why I keep sort of doing it wrong. Just a little bit non-intuitive for me, but there's no right answer, obviously. Now, one question does become, do we want to put the brows on their own separate layer? I'm going to say for this exercise, I don't think I want to bother. So what I'm going to do is turn this level off and this level on. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So, again, we can use the G key. G. Okay, we need to actually turn the snapping way down. Okay, we'll keep that. So if you're not necessarily the greatest artist in the world, this can be a really good way to work. Because you start out with simple lines and you just build it up, right? It's kind of like in music, it can be likened to step sequencing. You don't have to be a great player if you step sequence, and even though I'm a player, play guitar, keyboards, and drums, actually, and sing and everything else, I can't criticize somebody who is smart enough to use step sequencing to get the result they're after. You know, if it gets the result and it sounds good, who really cares how it was done, right? Now, if you're a purist and you don't like that idea, then you are absolutely welcome to disagree with me. Okay, so now what's interesting about this is we can take the S key. Let's just grab these, hit Control C, paste them in here, and now with the C key, let's just sculpt them. Let's just modify them a little bit, right? And I think we'll take a point out right there. We'll grab this point and move it. Can we move it? There it is. And that's kind of interesting how we can use the dragging the points around to modify the thickness. Okay, and this I feel like has too many nodes actually. So not a bad way to work. Is this perfect? Nope, it's not perfect. I'm going to have to take the tire pump and fine tune it. Okay. Yeah, there's a little moment of variation there that to me isn't the most gorgeous thing ever, so but I think that'll probably work. Now let's go here, and I'm just going to redo them on this one. So just 2 points, that's all you need. Boom, boom. C key, drag it up, and tire pump, which I probably should memorize. Okay, I don't even have a actually don't have a hotkey for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try to increase this a little bit so that, yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, so look at that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so admittedly the poses are in the wrong order, but frankly, who cares? It's easy to fix it later. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about our nose and mouth right now. I could put those in another layer, you know, whatever. Okay, so looking at this, see that's picture 1, picture 2, picture 3A. So what is this? This one I didn't use, so I'm just going to delete it. I guess you can't, unfortunately, you can't actually, okay, there we go. So now let's see if that changed anything here. And it did not, so that's good. So that's kind of how we expected it to work. So what's the problem at this point? Well, what we need to do, I'm thinking let's go here to the palette, and what we really want to do is probably steal a number of colors. And actually, I'm going to grab these as well. I like those colors. So I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to come back to the eyes and paste those in. So I really like that you can cut and paste palette colors. It's super convenient. Okay, and I think for simplicity, I'm going to make number 12 the actual whites of the eyes, which are not going to be quite white. We want to leave a little bit of latitude for the reflection on the eyeballs. But the significant point here is that in order to hide the eyeball behind the eye, we're going to have to make this essentially into a mask. Which is going to be a little tricky, because we got all this shadowing going on. Yeah, I'm realizing now that I'm creating a lot of extra work for myself by trying to do it as, you might say, objects instead of just drawings. But, c'est la vie. It is what it is. Let's go to frame 2. I got one little adjustment I want to make here. Anyway, so point is, we can't fill these. If we were employing a little different strategy, we could just do that. But what we're wanting to do is look through the eyes to the eyeballs. So let's draw one eyeball. Okay. And let's continue on the track we are on, which means we're going to use the circle tool to, wouldn't you know it, draw a circle. Okay. Now, having drawn our circle, and by the way, can we cut and paste over here as well? Okay, okay. Step in the right direction. Alright, so let's fill it. Okay, and yeah, it needs to be behind there. So now we want to get a little more specific about some possibilities, which most of this I've never tried. Never tried this. Custom, like, are there gradients in here somewhere? Custom. I know there are gradients in the schematic effects. We can add a gradient. But I don't, maybe that? Okay, that's interesting. Palette D. Okay. I'm assuming number 2, color 46. So what does this mean? Let's see what this is. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me, people. Sorry about that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it doesn't look like anything. So I guess maybe this is not what you would think of as just like a regular gradient kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that is a lot easier to do in a program like Krita, where you just paint a gradient and you're done. But if we can't have that, let's go back here. Okay, so now this is interesting. Once you make it special, OpenToonz doesn't want to not make it special. Okay, that's how you do it. Okay, so with that in mind, considering what we think we want for colors, I'm thinking we want to have at least 3 variations. Yeah, 3 variations. And then what I want to do is go back to this. And I really want to turn snapping off. So now the question is it going to grow from the center? Let me see what these are. Okay. Is this going to grow from the center or from the top? It grows from the center. Okay, so that's good to know. And I'm going to go ahead and fill that. And now I'm going to hit the G key again. And just kind of going up from here. I'm going to fill that as well. Okay, now I'm going to grab this once again. And I'm really spitballing here, folks, by the way. I'm totally making this up as I go along. Okay, that's interesting, but it's not really what I wanted. Okay, so I see the problem here. Because that is, in fact, a vector, I've got to select lines here so I can fill that. Okay, but then it filled that whole line. That's interesting. So what I really need to do is hit the eraser, I think. And can I erase that like that? Okay, that kind of works. But then I need the fill tool with this right here. Can I fill this? I'm going to fill areas. Yeah, that worked. Okay, good. Alright, so is that eyeball centered like we want it to be? Kind of, sort of, but not really, I would say. So if we move it around, okay, so you can see what the problem is. But you know, actually I wonder, maybe we should just live with that. I'm looking at the little icon here. It really doesn't look too bad. Let's go into there. Let's go into the drawing and kind of see what we have to work with here. That's probably a bad idea. We really do need to see it in context. So now what I want to do is have a fourth color. And this kind of speaks exactly to why I'm doing this as a kind of a standalone drawing. Because you can just see how, oh boy. Okay, so this would definitely be probably easier to do in about 1,000 different other ways. Like anything other than the way I'm doing it. Because if I fill that, it's not going to fill. It's got to fill lines. And then that changes that. So, yeah. Really problematic. Definitely a bit obnoxious. So maybe there's something about Z order stacking that will have an impact here on what's going on. So I'm going to grab this. Okay, and I'm hitting the bracket keys. Yeah, okay, maybe. Yeah, that doesn't really... I can do the above, the in front of and behind, but it doesn't really solve the problem I'm having to solve here. It looks to me like the best solution, it's definitely a kludge, but I'm thinking that the best solution is going to be to, darn it, is going to be to resize this. Yeah, this is such a kludge. Okay. And then I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to use the tire pump tool to try to just cover up that stupid black dot. Now, admittedly, that's a horrible kludge, and you could argue that I'm sort of violating the sanctity of what I'm trying to do because we all know that that circle's supposed to be a circle. I have an idea, though. I just thought of an idea. Let's try this. Okay, S key, hello. Clicking away. Okay, OpenToonz is basically acting stupid. OpenToonz is acting stupid. So I'm going to save my work so that I can just click away. There we go. Alright, I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to delete that. Here's what I'm going to do. I think this is my solution. I'm going to draw a circle here. and fill it. Come on, Open Toonz, don't be so silly. Now I'm going to hit the S key, select this, okay, and I'm hitting the Shift key now to constrain it. And now, if I put it here, but then use the brackets to bring this to the front, oh, OMG, people, this is like absolutely going to drive me up the frickin' wall. Okay, so now it's grabbing all that stuff. Okay, okay, that's what you're going to do. I mean, you guys can completely see what I'm trying to do. I'm just like trying to take a simple shape, and I'm hitting, just hitting undo over and over and over again there, trying to get this to behave. Okay. You know, feel like completely helpless here. Another thing that is really annoying is the S key for selection has never drawn a black line like that. It's always been like a dashed line. And now I'm trying to select that one, and look at this. It thinks I want to select all this. So what do you call that behavior? I call it bizarre. I call it completely bizarre. Excuse me. So, and what's one thing that's good is we can use the, okay, so that might be our solution. Alright, so we've filled this. I'm going to go back several steps. Okay, oops, edit, redo. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. Just because this is so amazingly frustrating, I'm thinking that if I just use the S key to select it and then use the tire pump to make it so big that it looks like it's filled in even though I didn't fill it, and then use the S tool, the selection tool, to shrink it, and then I think that way it will stay on top and cover things up. Okay, so that's good, and now I can hit Control C and Control V and make an even smaller version of this that we're going to drag to here. Okay, so that was pretty darn painful. But we got it. And now this eyeball, we can hit the A key and treat the whole darn thing as a single entity, which is great. Because, in fact, gosh, I'm thinking we grab the whole thing and duplicate it. Actually, let's grab the whole thing, Control C, Control V. Now we'll select that whole batch, and of course Open Toonz is acting stupid again. Okay, so what we can see what happened, Open Toonz opted to paste in the clone close enough to the originating one that simply by virtue of trying to drag the clone around, you can't help but grab part of the originating one, which is so mind-numbingly stupid because there is no scenario in the history of the entire galaxy where that would be desirable behavior. Ever. You'd never want that. Why would you? If you did, you would be stupid. Well, maybe Open Toonz is bad with screen scale. In other words, maybe if I zoom out and hit Control C and Control V, relative to the screen, it'll paste it about the same distance away, which would mean I would have room to grab it. Let's see what happens. Nope. So as you can see, you're screwed. You're screwed. No matter what you do, no miracle will ever, ever, ever allow you to take this and actually make a duplicate of it in the most common, logical, sensical way that every other drawing software you've ever used would allow you to. You're hosed. Well, I'll tell you the truth. This is a great example. For all my complaining, there's a great lesson here. And the lesson is create your assets elsewhere. It would have been better to create the eyeball in Krita or Inkscape or any other GIMP. Create it anywhere. Do it in any way except this. So the lesson here, I think, my takeaway so far today is if you're going to deal with simple vector shapes and you want to use the tire pump tool to do what I did here with the eyelashes so you don't have to deal with fills and outlines and everything, great. If you have to construct a complex um, well, let's just call it a drawing, like the iris of an eye, where there might be some gradients involved, especially if you're going to use actual gradients, then don't use vector levels in OpenToonz. Save yourself the heartache. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up. No, this isn't going to work. It's going to turn it black and white. I know it is. This is going to turn it black and white. So yeah, this was probably the single dumbest way I could have possibly done this. But there we are. So what are we going to do? Let's try the cleanup thing, and if it doesn't work, which I know it's not going to, I'm sure, because it's not going to. Well, okay, it could if I go to the cleanup area and see if I'm going to not go grayscale, then I need to add colors for every single one of those colors in the iris, which is, again, dumber than a box of rocks. Okay, so there's the lesson. This is a complete waste of time. Don't create irises with OpenToonz vector levels. That's the lesson. How long have I been going here? I've been going for 40 minutes. I got the eyes constructed, and we got stalled here on the irises, which is kind of unfortunate. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer on that problem for the moment and focus on this. What I want to do here is I want to create a mask that makes it so that the eyeballs can be hidden when they're behind the irises. So the problem that we have today is that half of her face is hidden by the pillow. So in a perfect world, you'd design the face, you'd color it in, you'd do everything I'm trying to do right now, and then you'd have the pillow on a separate layer. I don't think there's any way we can avoid it. I think we're pretty much stuck with that. And again, the way I did the shadows, this is a good example of doing anime shadows where you draw blue lines or red lines, and then OpenToonz you use auto paint for lines to put in shadow areas. Almost always a bad idea, actually, because of what we're dealing with right now. We're going to create an area here where half of what we drew is in shadow and half of it isn't, and now you're dealing with all these little tiny shapes. What would be one heck of a lot easier is have this just be all one solid flat color, like a dumb cartoon, and then draw the shadows as just black lines over everything, and then make them partially transparent in the schematic editor, so that when it renders you get perfect shadows, just the same way I did all the shadows on the Ninja guys. So lesson for me here is traditional anime style shadows can actually cause you a lot of problems downstream. So let's pretend the problem wasn't there. If Akari's face wasn't fouled up with this shadow area the way I did it, say the shadow's not the problem, the way I did the shadows are the problem, what would I do? Well, here's what I would do. I'm going to use the G key, and I'm going to make a polyline so this is as simple as possible. I would basically go like this. I would click, 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 and I would basically make her what amounts to a raccoon mask, and then I would fill it. Okay, so that works perfectly. I mean, it really worked perfectly. That worked exactly like we wanted. So now what we have is we've got this area that allows us to use the A key to animate the eyeballs any way we want to. So that's super cool. It's just that with that pillow in the way, we're kind of hosed. So do I patch it? I could patch it here, just draw a little piece of the pillow to hide the problem. Or I can say, well, maybe I'm going to use this model of Akari later. And if I'm going to use the model later, then I'd really rather have it done correctly this time. Well, what are we going to do? It doesn't really matter until we go ahead and replace this iris, because that's pretty bad. So I think the next order of business is to redo this iris in some somewhere else, probably in GIMP. Let's do a generic iris. This is what we'll do. We're going to find some references, and we'll do this in another video. The next step is going to be find some good anime iris and eyeball eye shape references out on the internet. We'll just find some references, and then using those as a model based on the aesthetic that we definitely decide we want, and I'm going to talk to Valerie about this, then we'll say, okay, that's the way we want the irises to go. That doesn't mean every character is going to have that, because we got a lot of situations where we're going to use dots for the eyes. It just depends on the emotions we're trying to express. But we do want to have some good models in the library for eyeball irises. And if we do them in, say, GIMP or somewhere like that, then we will have the ability to take those and just use a hue, saturation, and value tool to change the color for whatever character we want to use them for. And if we decide, well, this character is not going to have, say, round eyes, this character is going to have more oval eyes, well, that's fine. Then we'll just use the scale tool. We will unlock the aspect ratio, so that we can just, now I can't do it here because for reasons that I'm sure you can see, but I can't even see where my widgets are. And plus, remember, all this stuff right now, because of the pegboard, is rotated 90 degrees, which makes everything kind of a little bit non-intuitive. But the point is, we can have a basic model of an iris that we're going to use over and over. We can change the color, we can change the shape, but the basic design is what we know we want. So I think with that, I'm going to stop for now because we're at about the hour point. And I think we've made some good progress, but we're going to have to rethink some things in order to do what we want to do, which is absolutely not compromise on the quality. If we're going to have the quality, I got to go back, rethink some things, and do it right. It is what it is, so let's do it, but we'll do it next time.